Everything you think you know about dinosaurs is wrong. They weren't just giant lizards. They were the architects who reshaped our planet. And their story didn't end with an asteroid. It's still unfolding right in your own backyard. Welcome back to the channel. For 160 million years, an empire rose dominating every continent, every ocean, and the sky. An empire so powerful, it defies our imagination. And then, in a single day, it was all gone. Or was it? In this video, we will decode the greatest epic of life itself. First, we will journey back to their humble beginnings. How did these small, fragile creatures rise from the ashes of a global extinction to become rulers? Second, we will witness their golden age. What was the secret behind the colossal size of the sauropods, or the lethal bite of the T-Rex? It was a biological arms race that lasted for millions of years. And finally, we will uncover the greatest mystery. What really happened on the day the sky fell? And how does their legacy survive to this day right under our noses? To make this video, I've spent weeks digging through the latest paleontological research, scientific papers, and hundreds of 3D models to bring you the most accurate and cinematic story possible. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a journey back in time. And you'll want to stay until the very end, because the truth about their descendants will completely change how you see the natural world. Now, let's begin. Before the giants, there was a planet of the dead. 252 million years ago, history recorded its most terrifying chapter, an event known as the Great Dying. It wasn't an asteroid. It was the Earth itself, turning against its children. In what is now Siberia, a series of volcanic eruptions on a continental scale raged for nearly 1 million years, spewing catastrophic amounts of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. The oceans turned acidic, suffocating marine life. The air became toxic. Global temperatures soared. It was an apocalypse of unimaginable scale. 96% of all marine species vanished. 70% of all terrestrial vertebrate life was extinguished. Our planet was nearly a tomb shrouded in a toxic haze, a ghost of its former self. Life's great story had been almost entirely erased. So how, from a world so thoroughly broken, could the planet's greatest rulers possibly emerge welcome to the Triassic period? This was a world forged in fire, a world of survivors. All the land on Earth was fused into a single colossal supercontinent called Pangaea. Imagine a landscape stretching from pole to pole, a vast, unbroken expanse of rock and rust-colored sand. The interior of Pangaea was an extreme desert, scorching hot, fiercely arid, where water was a fantasy and survival was a daily battle. In this brutal landscape, dinosaurs were not yet kings. They weren't even princes. They were the underdogs, living in the shadows of giants. The throne belonged to other stranger creatures. On the ground, mammal-like reptiles called synapsids, our own distant relatives, fought to reclaim their place. But the true rulers were the archosaurs, a terrifying group that included the ancestors of crocodiles. Picture Pastosuchus, a 6-meter-long predator that walked on 2 legs, a land crocodile built like a freight train. These were the apex predators. They were the law of the land. So where were the dinosaurs in this picture? They were almost invisible. The very first dinosaurs, like Eoraptor and Coelophysis, which appeared around 230 million years ago, were small, slender, and fragile. No bigger than a modern wolf, they were opportunistic omnivores, snatching insects, lizards, and whatever else they could find. They were constantly on the run, hiding from the titans that ruled their world. They possessed no thick armor, no giant claws, no crushing jaws. By all accounts, they were destined to be a footnote in history. But they held a secret. Emphasize. A biological innovation so profound, it would give them the key to the kingdom. It wasn't strength. It was efficiency. It was all in the hips. Unlike other reptiles whose legs sprawled out to the sides, in a clumsy lizard-like posture, the dinosaurs' legs were positioned directly beneath their bodies. This simple architectural shift was a revolution. It turned them from waddlers into runners. It allowed them to move faster, further, and with far less energy than their sprawling competitors. In a vast, arid world where food and water were miles apart, this efficiency was the ultimate superpower. Furthermore, a growing body of evidence suggests that these early dinosaurs had a higher metabolism, perhaps even being fully warm-blooded. This meant they weren't sluggish slaves to the sun like other reptiles. They could be active for longer hunt in the cool of the dawn or the dusk and out-hustle their cold-blooded rivals. While the rulers of the Triassic were large and energy-intensive, the dinosaurs were compact, economical, and relentless. They were perfect survival machines engineered for a world on the brink. And then the world broke once more. Around 201 million years ago, as the Triassic period drew to a close, Pangaea began to tear itself apart. This triggered another wave of colossal volcanic eruptions, this time along the central Atlantic. The climate changed violently again, and another mass extinction event ensued. This time, it was the dinosaurs' main competitors, the giant archosaurs, that were wiped out. This was their moment. As the dust of the old world settled, an opportunity of planetary proportions opened up. The thrones of the apex predators were empty. The ecological niches were vacant. And who was perfectly poised to take over the small, fast, efficient survivors who had weathered 2 apocalypses? The dinosaurs. From the shadows, they stepped into the spotlight. Their true reign was about to begin. But to become the legends we know today, they needed more than just an empty world. They needed a paradise. And as the continents drifted apart, the Earth was about to give them one. A gift that would transform them from survivors into literal gods on Earth. Imagine a creature as long as 3 school buses, as tall as a 4-story building. A single footstep shakes the ground. Its heart is the size of a small car, pumping blood up a neck so long it disappears into the canopy. It weighs over 60 tons, the equivalent of a dozen elephants. This is not a monster from a fantasy novel. This was a living, breathing animal. This was the Jurassic reality. The question that has haunted paleontologists for centuries is, how did life get so impossibly big? The answer lies not in the animals themselves, but in the world they inherited. During the Jurassic period, the breakup of Pangaea accelerated. As the continents drifted apart, new oceans formed and shallow seas spread across the land. This brought moisture and rainfall to the arid interiors. The vast deserts of the Triassic gave way to endless, lush green landscapes. This was the age of the gymnosperms, colossal forests of conifers, cycads, and towering tree ferns that covered the continents. The atmosphere itself was richer. Oxygen levels are thought to have been as high as 30% compared to our 21% today. This oxygen-rich air would have supercharged their metabolisms and fueled incredible growth. For the herbivorous dinosaurs, this was a planetary all-you-can-eat buffet. And in evolution, when resources are limitless, amazing things happen. Size becomes a winning strategy. Being enormous makes you nearly invulnerable to predators. It allows you to reach food sources no one else can touch. And a larger body is more efficient at retaining heat and digesting vast quantities of tough plant matter. This was the golden age of the sauropods, the long-necked giants. Names that echo through time: Brachiosaurus, with its giraffe-like posture reaching for the highest branches. Diplodocus, impossibly long, with a whip-like tail that could crack at supersonic speeds. They were biological marvels. Their bones, though massive, were often hollowed out and connected to a sophisticated system of air sacs, much like modern birds. This lightened their skeleton and helped them breathe, pumping oxygen efficiently through their colossal bodies. Their necks, once thought to be stiff, were surprisingly flexible, acting like 50-foot-long cranes, allowing them to graze on huge swaths of vegetation while standing still, conserving precious energy. They were living, breathing ecosystems on legs. But where there are walking mountains of meat, there will be hunters of epic proportions. Welcome the king of the Jurassic, Allosaurus. Allosaurus was a masterpiece of predatory design. Lighter and more agile than the later T-Rex, it was a 9-meter-long nightmare armed with a mouth full of blade-like serrated teeth and 3 massive eagle-like talons on each hand. Fossil evidence is clear. Allosaurus was an audacious hunter. We have found their broken teeth embedded in the bones of Stegosaurus, and even the mighty sauropods were on their menu. They likely hunted in packs, working together like wolves to isolate and overwhelm prey 10 times their own size. Imagine the scene: an Allosaurus pack stalking a young Stegosaurus. The herd forms a defensive circle. The predators test the perimeter looking for a weakness. The air crackles with tension. This was the Jurassic arms race. In response to predators like Allosaurus, herbivores evolved into living fortresses. Stegosaurus developed its iconic double row of plates for defense and display, backed up by a tail armed with 4 deadly meter-long spikes, the thagomizer, a weapon capable of piercing bone and muscle. We have found Allosaurus vertebrae with puncture wounds that perfectly match these spikes. These were not decorations, they were weapons of war. The skies, too, were conquered. This was the age of the pterosaurs. These flying reptiles, close cousins of the dinosaurs, diversified into a stunning array of forms. From the tiny Anorognathus that flitted through the forests like bats to giants like Pterodactylus soaring over the coastlines, they ruled the air with leathery wings long before birds took flight. The Jurassic was a world of superlatives, a world of giants built on an Earth that was itself more alive than ever. It was a brutal, magnificent spectacle. But evolution's grand play was far from over. A silent revolution was beginning at the feet of these titans. A new kind of plant was appearing: the flower. This seemingly insignificant innovation would trigger a chain reaction, creating a more complex world. New kinds of food, and in turn, new kinds of dinosaurs. It would set the stage for the final act of their reign and for the rise of the most terrifying predator to ever walk the planet. What is more terrifying than a 9-ton predator with teeth the size of bananas? A 9-ton predator that is also wickedly smart, with a sense of smell that can detect prey from miles away and a bite force that can shatter steel. The Cretaceous period was not just about brute force. It was about intelligent strategy and the evolution of the perfect killing machine. Welcome to the Cretaceous period, the final and most spectacular chapter in the age of dinosaurs. The rise of flowering plants. The angiosperms was a game changer. They reproduced and spread far more quickly than the ancient conifers and ferns, creating a thick, diverse undergrowth. This created new food sources and new habitats, triggering an explosion of evolutionary creativity. The world became more colorful, more complex, and more dangerous. In response to this new world, herbivorous dinosaurs evolved into masterpieces of defensive engineering. They became living tanks. Meet Triceratops, the 3-horned face. This was no gentle giant. It was a 9-ton battering ram with a massive frill of solid bone to protect its neck and 3 sharp horns that it would have used to gore any predator foolish enough to attack head-on. They moved in great herds, a formidable wall of horns and shields. And then there was Ankylosaurus. If Triceratops was a battering ram, Ankylosaurus was an impenetrable fortress. Its entire back was covered in thick, bony plates, or osteoderms, fused together to create a nearly invincible suit of armor. But its true weapon was its tail. At the end of its powerful, muscular tail was a massive club of solid bone, which it could swing with enough force to shatter the leg bones of even the largest predator. It was the ultimate defensive dinosaur. But for every unbreakable shield, evolution forges a sharper sword. To overcome these living fortresses, predation had to become smarter, stronger, and more terrifying than ever before. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard king. Let's be clear, almost everything you've seen in movies is an understatement. T-Rex was not a clumsy, slow-witted monster. Scans of its fossilized skulls reveal a brain that was surprisingly large for a reptile of its size, with huge olfactory bulbs. This means its sense of smell was extraordinary, perhaps one of the most powerful in Earth's history. It could smell a carcass or a potential victim from miles away. And its eyesight was equally impressive. Unlike many other dinosaurs, its eyes faced forward, giving it binocular vision just like a hawk or a human. It could perceive depth with lethal accuracy, a key trait of a high-tier predator, not a scavenger. And then, there was the bite. Its massive skull was built to withstand incredible force. Its teeth weren't just sharp, they were thick, like railroad spikes designed to crush bone. The bite force of a T-Rex is the strongest of any land animal ever measured. It didn't just slice through flesh. It created an explosion of bone and gore. It was a walking catastrophe. Those tiny arms, they weren't weak. They were packed with muscle and could likely lift over 400 pounds each, possibly used to hold struggling prey close. But the king did not rule alone. The Cretaceous was also the age of the intelligent pack hunter. Meet the Dromaeosaurs, the family of the infamous Velociraptor. Again, forget the movie version. The real Velociraptor was about the size of a turkey, and it was covered from head to toe in feathers, looking much more like a demonic bird. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in intelligence, speed, and teamwork. It hunted in organized packs, using strategy to corner prey. And on the second toe of each foot, it brandished a single horrifying sickle-shaped claw, which it used to pin down and dispatch its victims. They were the organized assassins of the Cretaceous world. For millions of years, this brutal, beautiful, and perfectly balanced world thrived. The dinosaurs were at their absolute zenith. They had conquered land, sea, and air. They had evolved into thousands of breathtaking forms. They were the undisputed, unshakable masters of their planet. It seemed their reign would last forever. But the universe had other plans. An uninvited guest, a silent traveler from the depths of space, was on a collision course. In a single ordinary day, was about to erase 160 million years of dominance in a cataclysm beyond all imagination. Everyone knows an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. But have you ever stopped to truly consider what that day was like? What did it feel like for the last Triceratops on Earth to watch the sky itself catch fire? This is the story of the 24 hours that changed our planet forever. 66 million years ago. It began as a perfectly normal day in the late Cretaceous, and then a new star appeared in the sky. A point of light that grew brighter and brighter and brighter, visible even in broad daylight. It was an asteroid 6 miles wide, the size of Mount Everest, and it was entering the atmosphere at over 40,000 miles per hour, 20 times the speed of a rifle bullet. As it screamed through the air, it superheated the atmosphere around it to thousands of degrees. And then it struck. It hit the shallow sea of what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, with the force of 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. The moment of impact is almost incomprehensible. The asteroid and the bedrock it hit were instantly vaporized. Everything for hundreds of miles was obliterated in a fraction of a second. A supersonic shockwave and a thermal pulse, a wall of incandescent heat, expanded outwards at the speed of sound, incinerating everything in its path. But the horror was just beginning. The impact blasted a crater 100 miles wide, ejecting trillions of tons of molten rock and debris back up into space. This material then rained back down all across the globe. For hours, the sky itself was filled with trillions of tiny red-hot meteors. The atmosphere heated up to oven-like temperatures, igniting global firestorms that consumed the planet's forests. The Earth was being broiled alive. The impact also triggered earthquakes that registered off any conceivable scale and sent mega tsunamis some nearly a mile high, tearing across the oceans and deep into the continents. But the deadliest weapon was the one that came last. The colossal amount of dust, soot from the fires, and vaporized rock was blasted into the stratosphere, where it formed a thick, impenetrable shroud around the entire planet, blocking out the light of the sun. The Earth was plunged into a profound, chilling darkness, an impact winter that would last for years. Without sunlight, photosynthesis stopped. The plants died. Without plants, the herbivores starved. And without herbivores, the carnivores starved. The entire global food chain, built and perfected over 160 million years, collapsed in a matter of months. The great dinosaurs, with their high energy needs, were doomed. Their size, once their greatest strength, became their fatal weakness. Their reign did not end in a flash of light, but in a slow, agonizing decline, in a cold, dark, and dying world. So, who survived? The small, the humble, the adaptable. Those who didn't need much to eat. Those who could hide in burrows and caves, or in the deep water. Our ancestors' tiny shrew-like mammals survived by hiding underground. And one very special group of dinosaurs also found a way to pass through the eye of the needle. They were the dinosaurs that had already evolved for a different world. The ones with feathers, with beaks, with hollow bones, and with small bodies that required less food. They were the dinosaurs that had already conquered the air. In other words, they were the birds. The story never ended. It just changed. Every time you see a pigeon on a city street, a hawk soaring on the wind, an ostrich striding across the plains, or even a chicken pecking in a farmyard, you are looking at a living, breathing dinosaur. They are not related to dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, the last surviving members of the theropod branch, the same family that includes Tyrannosaurus rex and Velociraptor. Their dynasty was never truly erased. It just downsized, grew wings, and learned to endure. Their 160 million year legacy of survival gave them the resilience to live through the apocalypse and carry their incredible story all the way to the present day. Dinosaurs never really left. They just learned how to fly. The fall of the great dinosaur empire created a power vacuum, allowing another group of survivors to finally emerge from the shadows and claim the planet, the mammals, and eventually us. The story of how our own lineage went from tiny creatures hiding from giants to building civilizations and traveling to the stars is an epic saga just as incredible. And if you want to know how our ancestors went from being the prey to the planet's top predator, from the ultimate underdog to the ruler of the world, then you absolutely must watch my next video on the 5 Unbelievable Evolutionary Leaps of Humankind. I've linked it right here on the screen. Click on it, and we will continue this amazing journey through the grand story of life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.